for the playlist which deals with 3D experiences CATIA in generative shape design. We are still dealing with the wireframe tab, and the particular icon that I would like to discuss is points and planes repetition. Okay, so when you look at the bottom of the screen in generative shape design, this is the menu that you see, and if you select the wireframe tab, then one of the items that's there is points and planes repetition. And when you click on it, you get a dialog box like that. So I will go through the highlights of what is important in this particular functionality or icon. But before doing that, I want to point out that there is a CATIA v5 version of this playlist, and it's on YouTube with that link. And in fact, it's in this gentleman's channel, YouTube channel. The only thing is that it's not in English, and if you know Farsi, you can probably benefit from it. Now I have taken his approach, and basically the stuff that he's doing in terms of CATIA v5 and modified it and adapted so that it fits 3DEXPERIENCE CATIA interface. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. We start with generative shape design, and we end up with a part file like that. So what I'm going to do is, it really doesn't matter, but on that plane I will draw a curve. Okay, this can be incidentally a 3D curve, but I'm doing it as a spline right there. Okay, now if you select the wireframe tab, one of the icons right below point is points and planes repetition. So you click on it, that dialog box shows up. Now, notice that you have to select a point. Now, I don't have a point here right now. Even if I want to select something, I won't be able to do that. But let's not worry about this first point. Select the curve. The curve is right there. Now, when you select the curve and you look at this pull-down menu, this second one, which says instance and spacing, if you select it, actually gets deactivated. You can see that. I can't select that. And we'll come to the spacing and the instance that's going to be right now. For the spacing, I'm going to do that later. Okay. So I've selected the sketch and I've indicated I want two instances. What that means is that I want 2 points equally spaced on this curve. And let me actually make that thing 4, for example. And when I say preview, what happens is that 4 points are created on this curve, which divides that whole thing into 5 pieces. Now, if you want the endpoints to be included, if you want points at the endpoints, you select the with endpoints right there and preview. Notice that the endpoints, that 4 includes the endpoints. But if I don't want it, I'll just take it like this. So when you say 4 and you check this this box, then the 2 of them are going to be at the end, extremities, and then 2 are going to be created over here. Okay. The other thing is that there is this thing called create normal planes also. So if I select this, at these points that are created, there are normals to the curve right there. If you want, you can also either select an axis system, which was already created, or you can do that right now and then have it repeated. Let me say okay for a second. Good. I'm going to go and create an axis system. Right now, notice that the default at the origin is selected. Okay. Now, if I go and double click on this point repetition, here I can say, see, it's too late to go it's too late to go and select this access system. That's not going to work. Let me cancel this thing, and I'm going to delete this whole thing. Try it again. Click on the points, planes repetition. I select the curve, okay, and 4 instances, okay. Create a normal, create an access system, and select the access system because I already created it right there, and I say okay. Notice that the access system has been basically repeated here. Okay, now I'll come back to that in a second. Let me actually let me go back here. There were some options there that I haven't used, so let me cancel that, and I'm going to delete all of these. Now you see why I did that. So let's go ahead and make a surface, extrude this thing into a surface. So I go to Surface tab, and I'm going to extrude this, and in both direction, and I make it 16 each direction. Okay, so I have that curve already there on that. So let me go and again go to wireframe, points and planes repetition, select that curve. Okay, for instances 4, create normal to the plane, normal planes, and create an access system or, or copy the access system. So let me select that access system. Now, here there's a clone. Clone means that exactly in that same direction at those points. But you can also say, okay, do it along the surface. Select that surface, okay, and then preview. Look at what happened here. Look at what happened. The access system no longer is in this direction. One of the axes x is actually tangent to the curve. So there are things like that that you need to be aware of. Let me delete all of these, and I'm going to delete that extrude. Okay, back to that. Now, let me create an arbitrary point on this curve. So I'm going to go to a point, and we have done 8 or 9 videos on this, on a curve. So let me create a point like that on this curve. I've created a point right there. Now I'm going to do that, use that icon again, points and planes repetition. Okay, this time I'm going to select my curve, but I will also select the point right there. Okay, so I don't want these planes anymore. I don't want the access system. 4 of them. Okay, so what that means is that between this point that you selected and the closest extremity, which is in this direction, make 4 points. So preview right there. If you flip this preview, it's going to do it on the other side. Now, let me cancel that. Let me create another point right up there. Another point on a curve, and let me make it right over there. Okay, back to points and planes repetition. First point there, the curve, automatically the curve that point sits on it is selected. And for the second point, let me select this. And now I say 4, that means create 4 points between these 2 points, not between the extremities. And I don't want these planes, stuff like that. And then preview right there. So it's between these 2 points, first one and second one, I've created these. Let me delete this. Okay, and I'm going to delete for example, this point. Okay, good. Let me go back to that icon. This time I select the curve. I select that point. I have a point here. See if I can select it right up there. And I'm going to go, for example, in the other direction. Not instances, because if I do instances, it's going to be between this point and the extremity. We have already done that. So I'm going to say, for example, instances and spacing. So I want 4 points starting at this point to be made, which are 1 millimeter apart. So let me make this thing maybe 20 millimeter. Preview. There we are. You see that? This instances and spacing, you can specify the spacing. Whereas in the other case, which was instances, it was equally dividing the two extremities actually. So let me make this thing 50, preview. And all these things are the same. Now, notice that there is two things here, absolute and relative. If I say absolute and I say okay, the points are created right up there, right up there. My question is, can I make changes? For example, can I go and make this distance, which was 50, to something else? So let me go and make this thing, try to make it, try that. See, you can change these things. You can change these, okay? Because this is locked, okay? There we are. Now, let me undo this. Do it again. Do it again. So here's the curve. Here's the point. I'm going to go in the other direction. This time, instances and spacing, very good. 50, and then instead of absolute, I make it relative. Say okay. There. Now, can I go and change some of these distances? For example, I go here. See that spacing equal to 50 millimeter? Still it's locked. You can see that. Still it's locked. Cancel. Let me delete this. Okay. Select the curve. Select the point. Go in the other direction. Now I'm going to go and change this thing to spacing. Again, you have absolute and relative, no problem. So what it's going to do is it's going to make 6 instances, 50 millimeters each. So we say preview. There we are. And we say, yeah, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we say okay. Now let's go to the tree. For example, let's look at, this was absolute, by the way. First one, can I change it here? No, it's still locked. So cancel, delete this, do it again. That curve, that point, other direction, spacing, relative, and preview. Say okay. Can I go and change these things? Yeah, now I can go and change. See that? Double click on it. Not this one. Double click on it. I can make this thing. Let me zoom out a little bit. Maybe 10. Okay. Notice that things change. So the moral of the story is that when you do absolute, you cannot change the spacing, but when you do relative, you can actually go ahead and change some of the spacing. So here, if you go here, for example, I make this thing, make it maybe 5, and say okay. Notice that some of them have changed. You really have to practice with this option relative absolute, but absolute just does it for you. Okay, so let's try one more time. I'm going to delete all of these things, delete all of these things. I'm going to delete that sketch. Is this delete? Of course, the point is going to go with it. I don't need the axis system. Let me delete it. Okay, let's go on that vertical plane. I use sketch, half a circle, or an arc, center here. There we are. Exit. Create a point on it. You might say, is this a point? Yeah, but you can't use that. Let me create a point on that curve. But there. Okay, so now we go to points and planes repetition. Select the curve. Select the points as a starting point. Right there. So it's going to do it in this direction. For example, let's say I want to take the distance from here all the way to that extremity and create, or let me, instances, make 6 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Etc. This is very useful, but to get the hang of it, you may have to practice with some of those more complicated menu selections. That's pretty much it, folks.